Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
And this is Jack from emailsthatsell.com.
Today, email teardown.
And not just any teardown. Jeremy's going to share an entire cold email sequence, a 4-part he received recently. We're going to go through the email, the follow-ups, and share what worked and what could have been improved. Let's dive in.
The emails are not necessarily exhibiting all the typical mistakes. There's a bit of a shared mix here. So I think that's going to be very interesting to look as well as the follow-up and see what we think of it.
Exactly. This is a good one to learn from here. Let's kick things off with the first email here. The subject line reads, connecting, : Jeremy, data delivery, ! Here's what the email reads. Hi, Jeremy. If my research and knowledge about the market are correct, company QuickMail.io should have a third supplier for business people and company data. Hope you don't mind my direct approach. I'm name from oxyleads.com, the best supplier of people and company data collected from the biggest social network of professionals. We are already supplying Fortune 500 companies, and I'm wondering who would be an appropriate person I could discuss data acquisition process in your company. Thank you. All right, let's do some teardowns here. Jeremy, you received this message, so why don't you share your notes as the message was directed to you? I'd love to hear your initial reactions.
Confusion. I think that was the...
Confusion.
Yeah, I had no quite understanding what the value proposition was really. There's a lot of things that are jargons, like a third supplier for business people and data,
right,
and company
right.
data. It's just like,
correct.
What does it really mean? So these are a few of the things that struck me. One of them is it says data collected from the biggest social network of professional. It's like, isn't that LinkedIn? And if that's the case, why not just mention LinkedIn directly?
Exactly.
Why not name also the Fortune 500? I'm not a Fortune 500 anyway, but I don't see the needs of Nike really fitting mine. So that also means like, am I really the target of this message? We're a small company. And bear in mind that we're a 3-people company. So asking for the appropriate person doesn't really make sense. The research has not been done properly either here. There's a few more things, but I'm curious to hear what you think of it yet.
So let me jump in here because interestingly enough, mentioning that they worked with Fortune 500 companies actually might have backfired in this example because, like you said, your needs and Nike's aren't aligned. There's a chance that you're not a good fit for them. So just if you're listening here, it may not always be the case where you want to name drop the largest company that you've ever worked with. Something to keep in mind that's interesting. And this last thing I was going to comment is if your reader, if your prospect opens your email and reads it from top to bottom and is confused about the value prop, you've done a bad job with cold email copywriting. And I would say that's probably the worst thing that you can do is leave people confused. You need to make it crystal clear how you can help their business. So not the reaction they were hoping for, I'm sure.
Bear in mind, this is a first email. So it's kind of understanding that maybe you can add some confusion with some of the follow-ups because you're trying different approach, different angles. But the first email should be really crystal clear.
Yeah, and simple.
Yeah, and simple. One thing I would also actually point is they could have inverted the first and the second line. I think that would have sit better with me. So it's like, hi, Jeremy. And the first line will be, I hope you don't mind my direct approach. So it's like, okay, I give him a chance. But here, those 2 lines were inverted. The first one was like, hey, if my research is like me, doing something, I was like, okay, he's losing me already. And then he say, I hope you don't mind my direct approach. It's like, I'm an afterthought. And I would prefer if you contact me that, I'm a forefront. I mean, that's the sort of thing.
No, that's a great point there. And mentioning, hope you don't mind my direct approach it's disarming. It's calling out, this is a direct approach. I hope you don't mind.
Totally.
I find sentences, intros like this to be pretty helpful, but that's a good note to make sure that leads instead of follows the first sentence. So I got 2 more points here to share. She says that if my research and knowledge about the market, it would have been much better if they said, if my research in the, cold email outreach market are correct. That way, like you're saying, oh, okay, they've at least shown that they know which market I'm in. And also they said company QuickMail.io. That doesn't sound natural at all. Company QuickMail.io. delete the company and it would have sounded much more natural.
You know, the funny thing actually is that my company is not QuickMail.io. It's like a completely different name. That's my product. And it would have worked better as well if they removed the .io as well.
Right. That's true. Okay, cool. So a couple like data merge tag cleanup things that they should have done there. But last thing, this is a perfect example of a weak call to action. If you listen to the last episode, you know that weak call to actions are one of my biggest pet peeves with cold email. Let me read the call to action one more time before moving on to the follow-up emails. And just take note as it's just taking a back seat and hoping you know exactly what they want you to do. It says, we are already supplying Fortune 500 companies, and I'm wondering who would be an appropriate person I could discuss data acquisition process in your company. Thank you. Like,
yeah, I was thinking, yeah, keep wondering. I don't care.
A quick revision. It could have just been, who is the appropriate person to discuss data acquisition at QuickMail?
Oh, I'm passionate about data acquisition. Who can I talk to in your company that will be as passionate or would be really interested in having this type of conversation?
Even better. But the important part is it's a direct call to action. They know what action to take. Okay. That's all I got for this email. Should we move on to the follow-up?
Yeah. Just last point. If you have to say who you are on the third line, you're already doing something wrong, I think. That would be my last point.
There you go.
Like, I don't need to know your name.
You're talking about the third line that says, I'm named from Oxyleads. Oh, and I did have a final thing. They said, I'm named from Oxyleads, the best supplier of people and company data. It's like, the best, really? Like, who are we to believe that you said the best? That's a superlative that should be backed up with a stat.
You know, the funny thing is actually just blank out that. I actually didn't think about it. I mean, I ignored that. I ignore that claim.
It was meaningless.
It wasn't backed up. Totally.
Okay, let's push on to the first follow-up, email number 2. The first follow-up happened 24 hours after you received their first cold email. Let's take a look at the follow-up email copy. It says, hello again, Jeremy. Could you please confirm/deny if my assumptions about people and company data usage in your company are correct? Thank you. Our data set contains, 330 million people profiles, 10 million company profiles, 30 million updated profiles a month, freshest data plus highest update scale plus on-time deliveries. Jeremy, does it sound like something you'd like to learn more about? ? Let's start with your take on this, Jeremy. You were the intended audience, so tell us how this one made you react, what you would have done differently.
So the first thing I saw without even reading anything is there was bullet points. As soon as I see bullet points, I know it's spam and I don't read it. So that's my sort of like quick scan. Imagining there was no bullet points, I would have started by reading like, could you please confirm, deny? And that would have sit really badly with me. The first thing is, honestly, I'm not your servant. So starting off with a request actually doesn't sit well with me. That's the first thing.
It's not only that, it's a selfish request.
Yeah, totally.
It's confirm or deny my assumptions.
Yeah, exactly.
How does that help you or your company?
What's the value proposition here? The call to action is really good. This sounds like something you'd like to learn more about. That's cool. You know, that's more casual than please reply by Monday tonight, you know, kind of thing. That's because, you know, Monday tonight I got something and I'd like you to, you know, fit in my agenda. It's just like me kind of thing at the beginning. And yet the rest was actually pretty okay if you remove the bullet points and just say like, hey, we really have 30 million updated profile per month, so we do have fresh data. Is that something that you may have need in your business right now? And that would have sit way better than, this is my agenda. I'd like you now to confirm my assumptions are correct.
Exactly. My boss needs me to make sure that my assumptions are correct, you know, help me out with my deliverables for the week. So spot on. I've got basically 2 that you mentioned. I said good call to action as well. It was a selfish ask of them. It doesn't really benefit. But the one other point that I'd like to add to this is they mentioned that their data set contains and then 4 bullet points of info about their data set, almost like something you'd see on a sales page of their website. I don't think you're quite ready for this info. It's a bullet point list, which indicated this is probably spam. I'm going to ding them for putting in bullet points. But instead, what if they would have done a more targeted approach? So instead of just sending you 4 random bullet point facts about their data set, what if they would have taken a little bit of time, understood QuickMail's needs, and said, hey, in our data set, we happen to have 5,000 profiles that are probably using cold email outreach. Is this something you'd like to learn more about? That's targeted. That's something you care about. you probably would have replied to that.
Yeah, I mean, I love the approach. Definitely, that's way more tuned to my needs and not his needs or her needs in this case.
And this is, again, so like taking this one layer deeper, this is why Jeremy and I are always coming back to segmenting your list. This person probably had a list of, I don't know, software companies, B2B software companies. From what I've read, it sounds like that's the audience they had. And they probably sent this message more or less the same to all of them. That's my assumption here. But if they would have sliced their list down and said, okay, let's break this down into the types of B2B software companies they're reaching out to, and then put in one custom sentence for each vertical that related exactly to that kind of company, they're going to do well. They're going to get a much better response rate. So this could have been solved with better segmenting. Anyways, that's the last I have on this email. Anything from your side before we check out the third email in this sequence?
No, let's move on. 2 days later, I received the next one.
Here's what it reads. And guys, bear with me. There's some more data in this email that will be difficult to translate on the cast, but we'll share some of these screenshots in the show notes so you can see exactly what this message looked like. It's a table with some data points. So if you want to check out what the email actually looks like, jump over to the podcast.quickmail.io and check out the show notes. All right, here's the third email. Here's what it reads. Sent 2 days later. I haven't heard anything back from you yet. I'm really excited to hear your ideas and extended requirements for the data, parentheses, structure, freshness, richness, as well as for the supplier of the data. In the meantime, I'm sending latest people data stats. And then here is this table. 3 columns. First column says year updated global. Second column, month updated global. Third column, last updated total. And below them, there's a lot of numbers. It finishes with, I'd love to discuss with you further. What's the best way for me to get 15 minutes on your calendar? ? Thank you. Whew. All right. I think a lot to unpack here. Let's keep the structure kind of flowing. Why don't you kick it off and I'll jump in.
All right. Buckle up. There's a lot on this one. First line, just all me. You know, I haven't heard anything back from you yet. It's like, yeah, so what? You know, that's your need. That's very selfish again of you. And then the next line is pretty nice because it says, I'm really excited to hear your idea. So it's like there's a trend here of selfish and not selfish at the same time in those emails. So, you know, make your mind. Either you're excited about me or you're excited about yourself, but make your mind. At least that would be easier. It's like dealing with a bipolar type of person.
Let me jump in really quick. So I would have liked this sentence. I agree. This is a cool line. It would have been even better if it says, since you're the founder of QuickMail, I'd be really excited to hear your ideas on, you know, that's like Fox and the Crow. That's like explaining why. Anyways, please continue, Jeremy.
No, that's awesome. That's exactly it. For complete fairness, again, I saw a table, which is not very far away from a bullet point. And actually, let's spend a bit of time on the table because it's a horrible budget job. It's like the most lazy thing you can do. It looks like it's a copy paste from Excel. The year updated global is just like always underscores. And it's just like, say, 2018 all the way across. We got like 5 lines of them. And, you know, just why putting this column if it's just like 2018? Then you got the months underscore updated underscore global. And again, this number, it's not even January, February, whatever. It's just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, you just like say there may be some stuff to be done here in order to make it more pleasant to read. And talking about that, the last column with, last underscore updated underscore total of what? Company, prospect, whatever. And then there's like, hold on, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 28 something millions and stuff like that. But there's no comma or apostrophe to make it easy to read. And, honestly, who cares if there is 37 at the end of 38 or it's just like, 900? I don't get that. So honestly, I saw this, ignored it.
Just something to add here. This is just a data dump. Let's just give them the benefit of the doubt that these numbers are meaningful. These numbers mean that they have incredible data. Unfortunately, the way they presented it made me say, what the hell does this mean? Like it's obviously intended for a computer to read. It makes you jump through 2 or 3 hoops before you can actually say, okay, maybe this is really good stuff. So my recommendation, do not share a data table or bullet points with a bunch of meaningless numbers. And again, this is a data table with meaningless numbers because they're not told in the appropriate story. So instead, this would have been a great place to add a mini case study here, where it's like a similar company to QuickMail was able to use our 30 million contacts in the sales space in order to generate an extra 15% more revenue each month, add to their pipeline, just turn this data set into a short story of how someone actually used it to improve their company, and it would have stuck much easier than just pasting numbers on this email.
Yeah, and even if you're not going as far as having a mini case study, as Jack mentioned, which would be great to have in this case, only saying like, hey, every month we're basically updating 30 million contact. That's basically how you can summarize this table. You don't need a table for saying that.
Perfect. Yeah, totally.
I don't know what she's really trying to achieve at this stage, except, losing me.
Just a sort of side note here. If you finish writing a cold email sequence, share it with people on your team and people outside your team, maybe colleagues that you trust that are a little bit removed from your industry, and get their feedback. I'm guessing this wouldn't have passed that test. If they would have shared this with two people outside their company, I'm guessing they would have said, hey, this makes me scratch my head, maybe do a rewrite and explain to me what this means. That's a good mistest to figure out if you're being very clear with how you can benefit your prospects.
Yeah, I love it. So let's jump into the call to action. Again, it's a very me writer focus. I'd love to discuss with you further. What's the best way for me to get 15 minutes on your calendar? Well, I'll tell you what the best way is first of all, provide a compelling offer, because right now I really don't know what you're providing per se. Oh, that will really help me in this space. I think that's the killer on this one.
Yeah, and I'll add something here. Like listening in, you're probably thinking, I hated this sequence. Don't get me wrong. There are some
good stuff.
Moments where, yeah, exactly. There's stuff to be learned here, stuff they did correctly. For example, I think the fact that they switched up the call to action so far in each email tells me that they're trying different approaches here. The first message didn't get a reply. The second one didn't. So they're continuing to try different things. And I'm a fan of switching up call to actions. But like Jeremy said, you've got to have a great reason for your prospect to give you their time. And at this point, the reason this call to action flopped, I'm assuming number one, like Jeremy said, they didn't give a compelling benefit for Jeremy to do this. And second, they're asking quite a bit at this point before they made it very clear how this could help QuickMail.
Well, here, basically, I just don't want to jump on a 15 minutes call to figure out what they want. Just simple as that.
Now, the last email of the sequence is my favorite one.
Yeah, I like it too.
I'm actually pretty excited to dive into it together. Shall we jump over and talk about email number 4, Jeremy?
Let's do it. And this one was sent a week after.
So let's dive into this final email, probably Jeremy and I's favorite. Let's see. Hi again, Jeremy. I'd love to share a free data set, and the free data set is in all caps and bold, of 10K people and companies with you. Our math PhD team have developed AI algorithms for picking the most important data points which maximize the value of the data. You will learn how rich our data is. Should I send it to you or to another person on your team? All right, kick it off, Jeremy.
Yeah, I like it. It's just like, it's nice to get something for free. So finally, there's some interesting points about like, oh, okay, they got math PhD, on their team. There's an AI algorithm. So that means that they offer something different, or something that is different enough, so I should pay attention to it. What is interesting as well is they mentioned the benefit. It's like, because we have that, the benefit is maximize, and then the value of the data is like, fuzzy kind of thing. But I do understand their point here. So I think it's much more interesting. You learn how rich your data is. I think that could actually be, it's like, I don't care how rich your data is. I care about the benefits. So really, that will say like, you'll get your prospect that will be purchasing QuickMail much faster. That will be actually quite interesting. Or you'll get a way better reply rate because of that. And it's like, okay, and now I understand why they can claim that. Yeah, and then should I send it to you or another person on your team? That's great as well, is that, even if I'm a 3-people company, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be the one reviewing the leads. So that could actually be sent to someone else. I could then forward it to Christopher and say, hey, Christopher, can you actually check those ones? That'll be great. Or I can take it myself. So I like really this tone. It's not like who is the best person on your team to. It's like, who should I send it to? I really like that approach. And I really wish this email was actually one of the very first one, because after all that went through and this sort of like confusion in communication, thing about like me, and then sometimes you, kind of like make me sort of doubt at this stage that it's going to lead somewhere that is interesting. And I think that's probably the tragic story of this cold email sequence. The last one being really good, but doesn't actually cancel all the really bad one earlier.
Notice by switching this email to the very first one, you're building in reciprocity from the get-go here. Like, now that every follow-up from this company, in the back of your mind, you're saying, oh yeah, these are the people that offered me free data set. Okay. At least they're coming from a helpful place. And I think just switching the order, like you said, would have been a big improvement. 2 more points here, because I love the trial as a gift approach. Like, this is something that's an amazing way to start a conversation. Notice, like, should I send this to you? Should I send you this list of leads? That's a much more compelling offer than what's the best way for me to get 15 minutes on your calendar. So anyways, one more thing here, where it's like, if somebody offered me a free data set of 10,000 people, it's like, all right, that's pretty cool, but I can guarantee there's probably no one of that 10,000 that I would be able to use, because
it's a shotgun approach.
Yeah, by definition, the most untargeted list ever created, because it's a random set of 10,000 people. So instead, I think it would have been cooler if they said maybe something like, hey, we have over 10 million professionals updated weekly. Hey, Jeremy, if you just shoot over like a bit of a profile of the kind of prospect you're going after, we'd be happy to share 2,000 people with you, or even just 20 with you that you can take a look at and maybe add to your campaigns. Like, that's much more targeted, probably adding more value to QuickMail and to Jeremy's team here. So just, again, getting more specific with the offer here would have leveled up this email. And last note here, I love how they dropped in our math PhD as well. Like, that shows me they're doing something special. But then they said they've developed AI algorithms for picking the most important data points. What important data points? Like, do you have a really cool data point you can just drop in? Like, for example, we know up to the minute, when they were funded, or maybe something even better where it's like, we've got data points that you can't find anywhere else, such as, I don't know, like real-time company employee counts or something. If they say they have something special, then share it. Don't put like a curtain behind your good stuff if it's a serious differentiator for your company.
One thing they could have done actually is ask me, what are the data points that are important to you? And I'll send you over, 1K prospects based on those data points that are important to you. And that way they could also use their prospecting to figure out what resonates best with people. It's like, oh, most people are interested in, I don't know, founded company, or, or people who just started a business. And then they could then reuse that into their cold email to the same targeted people with something they know will resonate with them. And, that would be like adding a line that says, for example, some of our data points are X, Y, and Z. And they know that those X, Y, and Z are the most commonly asked by people who request those free data sets.
Jeremy, I'm curious here. We've talked about a few ways to improve this email here. I'm wondering if this was the only email that you saw, but they used the recommendations that we just gave, do you think you would have replied?
I would have, and not necessarily just for myself, but I would have wondered, like, how can we potentially integrate that into QuickMail so other people could benefit from it? So in that sense, I could have been an influencer for them at the same time.
In short, this would have done a better job, just like N=1 experiment here. This would have been the thing to push you to reply with interest. So always good to know that at least you're tearing down a sequence directed at you. There are ways that could have gotten a reply. And so anyways, yeah, I think there was some good takeaways here. Good stuff. Awesome, Jeremy. Catch you next time.
All right. Thanks, Jack.
Hey, cold emailer.
Yeah, you.
If you got some value from this episode, give us a high vibe by sharing a 2-sentence review on iTunes.
Or Stitcher or TuneIn. That works too.
It's a quick way to help other growth-minded folks like us find this podcast.
So they can send awesome emails.
And make everyone's inbox a better place. Thanks.